It began the night the markets bled red across every screen in her penthouse. Numbers fell like silent snow, billions evaporating in pixels and panic. Her name, once synonymous with poise and precision, now scrolled beneath headlines she couldn't bear to read. She didn't cry. She simply watched the light die in her reflection, half of her face silvered by the glass, the other half swallowed by shadow. Somewhere between those halves lived the truth. They had called her Elara Voss, investment strategist, philanthropist, the woman who humanized money, and beside her stood Adrian Hale, the man she'd loved so completely that she forgot to ask the right questions about his empire. Now his name was the reason her empire burned. The collapse was not sudden. It was orchestrated, slow, deliberate, surgical. The kind of downfall that only someone who once knew your passwords, your fears, and your heartbeat could design. 2 years earlier, Elara had believed in elegance as a form of power. She'd built her firm like a symphony, clean offices, quiet confidence, clients who spoke her name with reverence. Then Adrian appeared, the quiet billionaire with the manners of an old poet and the instincts of a wolf. He didn't chase. He observed. His wealth was rumored, his methods mysterious. But when he smiled, he made corruption sound like art. At first, she mistook secrecy for sophistication. He told her he invested in alternative markets. She didn't ask which kind. He whispered about offshore possibilities and unseen value in volatility. She nodded, not because she understood, but because she wanted to belong to the world he moved in, the invisible one where power had no address. The first fracture appeared in a quarterly audit. A fund she never approved, the Halberd Index, was funneling profits into a private trust linked to his network. When she asked, he brushed it off with a kiss, saying, "It's just liquidity management." Her instincts trembled, but her heart accepted the excuse. Love has a way of dulling even the sharpest minds. For months, she watched him orchestrate deals like a magician turning loss into illusion. But she began to notice the pattern. Companies disappearing after mergers. Shell corporations registered under names that existed only on paper. She started tracing them at night, in the silence between their conversations. Each thread led her deeper into a maze of phantom accounts, billions shifting through digital corridors that smelled faintly of fear. One evening, as he slept beside her, his phone lit up with a notification. Encrypted transfer confirmed. She memorized the code sequence. By morning, she had already begun decoding it through a network she built for self-defense. A system she once swore she'd never use on someone she loved. The more she uncovered, the more she understood what love had cost her. He wasn't investing in markets. He was laundering war, weapons disguised as assets, governments paying in silence, lives traded for liquidity. Every romantic dinner, every whispered promise had been financed by conflict. And now her name was on the contracts. The realization didn't break her, it refined her. Fear sharpened into strategy. She began moving money in ways that mirrored his. If she could mimic his algorithms, she could expose him without dying in the process. The game had changed. Love became espionage. Kisses became cover-ups. Every morning she looked at him and wondered how long before he realized she knew. He did. Of course he did. Adrian noticed the subtle changes first. Files moved. Servers accessed at odd hours. Her tone too calm during market chaos. One night, over wine, he said softly, "You've started thinking like me." She smiled, hiding the tremor behind her glass. He added, "Be careful. That's how you lose yourself." Weeks passed in psychological warfare disguised as affection. He'd leave hints. An unsigned envelope on her desk. A transaction reference only she could recognize. She'd counter by leaking false data into his systems, watching how he reacted. It was like playing chess with reflections. Every move revealed another layer of who they'd become. By the time her analysts confirmed the scale of his network, or the blood money buried beneath luxury, she already knew she couldn't destroy him without destroying herself. Their fortunes were now fused, their digital fingerprints indistinguishable. Still, she prepared for exposure. An anonymous file, encrypted evidence. One final transfer that would trigger everything. But before she executed it, he sent her a message. Just 5 words. "Check your own accounts, Elara." She froze. The words on the screen pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Check your own accounts. She opened her financial console. Dozens of transfers blinked red, unauthorized. irreversible and all traced to her name. Every trail she'd followed to expose him now led back to her. He had mirrored her moves, rewritten her fingerprints, made her look like the architect of his crimes. And he did it without leaving his chair. By dawn, she was the one under investigation. A government task force froze her assets. Her board resigned. Reporters waited outside her glass tower like vultures circling a monument to hubris. She didn't run. She simply walked through the ruin she'd helped design. The marble floor still shone. The servers still hummed. But the soul of her empire had been sold, bit by bit, to the man she once loved. Adrian called her that evening. No apology, no defense, just a quiet tone. "You played beautifully," he said. Then the line went dead. It wasn't rage that filled her. It was recognition. He hadn't betrayed her, not entirely. He'd simply completed the lesson. She began the night. She chose to look the other way. The truth was, she wanted his world, and now she was part of it. She found him months later in Zurich, calm, elegant, untouchable. He smiled when he saw her, poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "You made it," he said. She placed a small black drive on the table, his entire network decrypted. He smiled again. "You could ruin me." She replied, "You already ruined us." Then she walked away. Days later, she received a letter with no signature. Inside a single USB stick, labeled Halberd. Her new accounts, her private messages. He was still watching. She laughed, softly, bitterly, because now she understood. Wealth isn't what you own. It's what you can't walk away from. No one falls for power. They dissolve into it. In the end, we don't lose to the people we love. We lose to the parts of ourselves they awaken. The city lights flickered like the pulse of an unseen heart. Money moved through the night, and somewhere, 2 brilliant minds kept playing. Their love reduced to strategy. Their strategy to survival. Their survival to silence. If the weight of this story resonated, subscribe to Betrayal and Billions to never miss the next chapter of psychological drama.